The design process usually starts with developing a theme or concept and designing with that in mind. Once you have designed your clothing, you will need to turn those sketches into technical drawings. You already know how to design a collection and how to create industry standard technical drawings. Now you need to learn how to turn that technical drawing into a flat pattern in order to construct your design and make it come to life. In other words, the pattern is the bridge between ideation and realization of your design. Hello designers, and welcome back to Lesson 7. Our lesson quote today is by Christian Dior, and it says, "Without proper foundations, there can be no fashion." Today we are going to look at the purpose of the basic pattern block, learn how to take body measurements and use it to draft a basic bodice, sleeve and skirt block. Guys, I am so happy that you have joined Lesson 7, the designer's block. Even if you feel a little overwhelmed, please stick around. Do you guys remember what a basic block is? The basic block, sometimes referred to as the master block or the sloper, is the pattern from which you draft your designs. The name basic block really sums it up nicely. It does not have any design details like fancy necklines, pockets, style lines, pleats, or gathers on it. The purpose of this block is not to be something beautiful, but to fit the figure properly. So why do we create basic blocks? To better understand how a flat pattern relates to the three-dimensional body, it is essential for new designers to develop a basic block to help them understand the basic pattern making techniques. Once you have a basic block that fits the figure perfectly, you won't have to worry about the fit when adding your design details. That is why it is critical to spend as much time on the basic block, as it is considered the parent pattern from which other designs will be born. Apart from good fit, this basic block will also save you a lot of time, allowing you to be more creative and experiment with design details because you're not spending unnecessary time drafting a pattern from scratch. Just a note, even though you spend time to achieve the perfect fit, after adding design details and manipulating the block, you can expect some alterations, but these will be minimal. As a fashion designer, I suggest that you create a set of basic blocks. Now, these basic blocks include, but are not limited to, a basic skirt block, a basic dress block, and a basic bodice block. For today, we are going to create a basic bodice block with a sleeve and also a basic skirt block. Within the bodice block category, you get subcategories: close-fitting bodice block and the easy-fitting bodice block, which refers to how close to the body it is and the amount of ease that is added to the pattern. This will influence the steps and also the measurements when drafting the pattern. So the first step is for you to choose the type of bodice block you want to create. If your design requires less darts and shaping, you draft the easy-fitting block. But for today, we are going to focus on the close-fitting block. For a fashion designer, measurements are everything. Whether you are designing for yourself, a brand, or a client, it is important to know how to take measurements. The first step to creating a basic pattern block is to gather the appropriate measurements. Now, these can either be standard measurements like your standard size 6, 8, 10, or 34, 36, 38, or a small, medium, or a large, or you can use your own measurements. If you are creating something for yourself, it would be best to use your own measurements, as this would result in minimal alterations. If you are creating clothing for a brand, then using standard sizing would be best. If you are looking for standard body measurements, I recommend the following books: Metric Pattern Cutting for Women's Wear and Pattern Making. Also feel free to search online for standard body measurements. So let's look at some measurement tips. First, you need a tape measure. This will make taking measurements so much easier. When measuring yourself, it would be best to measure yourself wearing underwear or close-fitting clothing to be as accurate as possible. As the Beatles said, with a little help from my friends. Taking your own measurements will not only be easier with an extra pair of hands and eyes, but will also be more accurate. If you are going to do it on your own though, I suggest you stand in front of a mirror so that you can see whether or not the tape measure is in the right position. Do you know how, where, and which measurements you should take? This figure will help us get to know the body a bit better and where we need to measure what. So please refer to this image when you get a little stuck. The following measurements are required to draft the basic blocks. Let's start with the bust. Measure from the back and pull it around to the front. It should be around the fullest part of your bust. Please make sure it is a horizontal line across your back and front. The waist. Measure the smallest part of your body. Again, make sure that it is a straight horizontal line across the front and back. And then we get the hips. Measure the largest part of your hip area, and then your front waist length or your front shoulder to waist. This is measured from the top of your shoulder line over the bust point to your waist. And then your back waist length or your nape to waist. Measure from the nape of your neck down your spine to your waist. You will notice a slight difference between the front and the back. That is natural because we don't have a bust on our backs, right? Also, you might need a little help from a friend to measure this one. And then your waist to hip. This is the measurement from your waistline to your hip line, and it is usually measured in a vertical line. And then your arm sky depth. This will either be given to you or you can measure it after you have drafted your basic bodice block. And then your neck size, this you measure from the back to the front at the base of the neck above your collarbone. And then your shoulder, measure from the point of your shoulder, this is where your neck and your shoulders meet, to the edge of your shoulder. Your dart, usually your pattern instructions will include this measurement. And then your sleeve length. Have your arm slightly bent, like in the image, when measuring from the tip of your shoulder to your wrist. I have created a measuring chart for you to fill in as you measure and for you to refer back to when you are drafting your pattern. You can find this in your toolkit underneath the bonus content tab. If you have not purchased the toolkit, don't worry. Just be specific when taking your measurements and don't get the measurements mixed up. Right, are you guys ready? Before we start, there are a few things that you will need. Pattern paper, or if you don't have this, a piece of newspaper will do. It just needs to be big enough for your bodice block. A ruler, if you have a clear grid ruler, that is amazing. If not, you just need to pay special attention to your lines. A pencil, pencil sharpener and eraser. A pen for the pattern information. A red marker for the grain line. Paper scissors. A tracing wheel, if you have one, would be great, but if you don't have one, we will have to improvise. And glue. You will also need your measurements. So let's take a look at the measurements I will be using today. The following chart is from the Metric Pattern Cutting for Women's Wear book and is for women of a medium height. When you are drafting patterns, you can use these measurements or you can use your own ones. I am going to use the measurements for a size small. The measurements I need for my bodice block include my bust, back width, chest, shoulder, neck size, nape to waist and front shoulder to waist, my arm sky depth, and waist to hip measurement. Just a note, if you ever want to buy a pattern making book, I recommend Metric Pattern Cutting for Women's Wear by Winifred Aldrich. We are going to use this today, so let the drafting begin. Step 1. You need to square it down from the first point 0 in this case, and square across the page. This must be quite big, basically the size of your torso. When I say square up, down and across, you need to be precise and make sure you create a 90-degree angle. Go slow and steady and make sure the lines are straight, because if they are not, it will influence the fit of the pattern. Point 0 to point 1. Measure down 1.5 centimeters and name that point 1. This will be your back neckline. Point 1 to point 2. This will be your arm sky depth measurement plus 0.5. So, my arm sky measurement is 20.4 plus 0.5, which gives me 20.9 centimeters. So, from point 1, I need to measure 20.9 centimeters, and that will be my point 2. Point 2 to 3. This measurement will be half of your bust measurement plus 5 centimeters. So, my bust is 82 centimeters divided by 2, which gives me 41 centimeters, plus 5 will give me 46 centimeters. I am going to mark in point 3 and square up to meet point 4. This line is your center front line. You will notice that the measurement between point 3 and 4 is the same as point 0 to 2. Point 1 to 5. This will be your front waist length or your neck to waist measurement. Mine is 40.4 centimeters. And you can go ahead and square across to point 6. Next, point 5 to point 7. We need to mark in our waist to hip measurement. Mine is 20.1 centimeters. And then you can square across to point 8, which will also be on your center front line. When you measure this, it should be half your hip measurement plus an extra 2.5 centimeters for ease. And then you can square down from point 3 and connect points 3, 4, 6, and 8 in a straight line. We are now going to focus on the back first. So, point 0 to 9. This will be 1/5 of your neck measurement minus 0.2 centimeters. My neck measurement is 35.5. If I divide it by 5 and minus 0.2 centimeters, I get 6.9 centimeters. Once you have marked point 9, you can draw in your neck curve. Point 1 to 10. Point 10 is 1/5 of your arm sky measurement minus 0.7 centimeters. Once you have marked your point, you can square across, stopping about halfway through your block. My measurement is 3.38 centimeters. Point 9 to 11. This should be your shoulder measurement plus 1. Measure from point 9 up to where it touches the line you have drawn from 10. So, move your ruler around a little bit to find point 11. My shoulder measurement is 11.9 centimeters plus 1, so 12.9 in total. And then point 12 is the center of point 9 to 11, so midway between 9 and 11. Point 12 to 13. Measure down 5 centimeters and mark it with a dotted line. Use line 0 to 4 to create a straight line. Then, on the 5 centimeter point, measure in 1 centimeter. This will be your point 13. So, 5 centimeters down and 1 centimeters in towards the center back line. Now you need to construct your shoulder dart. Your dart is 1 centimeter wide, so you need to measure out 0.5 centimeters on either side of point 12 and measure from point 13 5 centimeters through your points. Make sure both dart legs are the same length, please. You will notice that the right dart leg does not fall on the original shoulder line, and that is totally fine. When you close the dart, you will still have a straight shoulder line. What you do have to do though is redraw the shoulder line and connect it with point 12. So the right dart leg, reconnect it with point 11. Point 2 to 14. To get point 14, divide your back measurement by 2 plus 0.5 centimeters and then square up to point 15. Half of my back measurement is 16.5 plus 0.5 centimeter, which will give me 17 centimeters. Now you can square up to point 15. Point 16 is half the measurement between point 14 and 15, so the midway point between 14 and 15. Point 17 is half the measurement between 2 and 14. Once you have marked in your new point, you can square down with a dotted line to point 18, which is on the waistline, and point 19 on the hip. And that is it for the back. So let's move on to the front. Point 4 to point 20. This is again a fifth of your neckline minus 0.7 centimeters. So my measurement will be 6.4 centimeters. Point 4 to 21. This will be a fifth of your neck measurement, but this time you need to minus 0.2 centimeters. So my measurement is 6.9 centimeters. Once you have marked this point 21, you can draw a nice smooth neck curve. Let's move on to the chest. Point 3 to 22 is half of your chest measurement plus half of the width of your dart. So, my chest measurement is 30.6 centimeters, so in total it will be 16.3 centimeters, plus half the width of my dart is 3, because my dart is 6 centimeters in total. This will give me 19.3 centimeters, and then you can square up. Now point 3 to 23 is half the measurement 3 to 22. In other words, the middle of that line. And now you can square down to point 24 on your waist and point 25 on the hip line. I would make this a dotted line too. On that dotted line, measure down 2.5 centimeters from point 23, and this will be point 26. Who can guess what this point is on the body? This is your bust point. Now you can join point 20 and 26 in a straight line to create your first dart leg. Point 20 to 27, measure out 6 centimeters or your dart width measurement to point 27. This will be your second dart leg point. 11 to 28. Now we need to move back to point 11 on the back shoulder line. Measure down 1.5 centimeters to point 28. Now you can square across from point 28 for about 10-11 centimeters and mark that new point, point 29. Now you need to draw in your front shoulder line. So point 27 to 30 will be your shoulder measurement, measured from point 27 to touch on the line you have just drawn in. My measurement will be 11.9 centimeters. Right. 22 to 31 is a third of the measurement 3 to 21, which is on the center front line. So, you measure 3 to 21 and divide it by 3 to get point 31. And then point 32 is in the middle or midway between point 14 and point 22. Once you have marked your halfway point, you can square down to point 33 and 34, and this will be your side seam. Now we need to create our armhole. To do this, measure out from point 14 at a 45-degree angle, 2.5 centimeters, and make a point. You must do the same at point 22, but only measure out 2 centimeters. And now you join your armhole starting at point 11, touching point 16, through your point that you have just marked, through 32 on the side seam, the other point, 31 and point 30. Try and make the curve as smooth as possible, same with neck curves. When the shoulder seams are joined, we want a smooth curve, so a nice tip is to always start at a 90-degree angle for the first 0.5 centimeters before you start the curve. You can erase all of the unnecessary lines and finish your pattern by adding some information. Let's look at mine. Here you can see the back and the front view, you know where the waistline is and the hip line. In just a few steps, a few measurements and some help from a calculator, you have created your very first basic bodice block. We will come back to this close-fitting bodice block when we learn how to manipulate it to create interesting designs. Guys, remember all of the summary notes and slides are available in your toolkit. Also, if you want to create your pattern and feel that I have moved too quickly, you can always re-watch the lesson and pause in between steps. Now that you have the basic bodice block, we can create the sleeve. There are 3 types of sleeve variations, and these are set-in sleeves, kimono sleeves, and raglan sleeves. Now the set-in sleeve is designed to fit into the armhole, so you will have a seam where the armhole is. The kimono sleeve does not have a separate sleeve, but combined with the garment. The image you can see on your screen right now is an example of a kimono sleeve. And then we get the raglan sleeve. A part of the sleeve is combined with the shoulder and neck and armhole area of the garment. Let's look at some images so that we can see the differences side by side. So just by looking at them, do you know which one is the set-in, which one is the kimono, and which one is the raglan sleeve? What do we notice? We can see a clear seam at the set-in sleeve image. The kimono sleeve does not have an armhole, but is all in one with the garment. And the raglan sleeve forms part of the shoulder and the neckline. Each of these patterns can be manipulated into other design variations by changing their characteristics a little or changing the style lines to suit your design vision. Let's take a quick look at the sleeve terminology. This will help you when you are drafting your pattern. The sleeve cap is the curved top from the back to the front. The bicep level is the widest part of the sleeve, as you can see, and this divides the sleeve cap from the lower arm section of the sleeve. The cap height is the distance from the sleeve cap to the bicep level. The cap ease refers to the difference between the arm sky measurement and the cap measurement. This can be between 2 to 4 centimeters. The sleeve will almost always be a little bit bigger than the armhole to create ease of movement. Next is the elbow level and the wrist level, which will be the hem of your sleeve. In order to draft the sleeve, you need the following measurements. Your sleeve length, which in my case is 57.8 centimeters, and your arm sky measurement. This measurement will either be given to you or you can measure it on your pattern. The arm sky depth is the armhole, remember? To measure this, you need to hold the measuring tape upright, like we can see in the image. This is how you will measure all the curves on your pattern, not with the measuring tape flat, but on its side or in an upright position. This way is way more accurate as it is quite difficult to measure a curve with a straight tool, right? So let's get drafting. As you can see, you draft the sleeve pattern on top of the basic bodice block. The first step is to draw a perpendicular line touching the front arm sky. Point 1 of your sleeve pattern will be the same point as point 22 on your basic block. Point 1 to 2 will be a third of the arm sky measurement minus 0.5. If you are drafting a block bigger than a size 16, minus 0.3 centimeters, so that you have a little bit more ease. So a third of my arm sky is 6.8 centimeters minus 0.5 centimeters, which gives me 6.3 centimeters. Once you have marked point 2, you can square across. Point 3 is midway between point 1 and 2. Once you have marked point 3, square across. Point 4 will be your next balance point, and that is where the line from 3 touches the back of the arm skyline. And then point 1 to point 5 is half of the measurement between 1 and 3. This will be point 5. Now you need to mark balance point A. This is adjacent balance point 5 but on the arm skyline. Next you need to mark in point 6, which is your front shoulder point. Point 5 to 7. Now you need to measure the arm sky curve from the front shoulder point, so point 6 to point A and plus 1 centimeter. Again, if you are drafting a sleeve bigger than a size 16, plus 1.25 centimeters. You draw this line by starting at point 5, and point 7 will be where the measurement hits the line from point 2. Point 8 is your back shoulder point. Point 7 to 9. Measure the armhole curve from the back shoulder point, so point 8 to point 4, plus 1 centimeter. Again, it will be 1.25 for bigger sizes. Draw in that measurement from point 7 to point 9. So you move the ruler from point 7 until that measurement hits the line. Point 10 is the underarm point on your side seam. Point 5 to point 11 is the measurement A to 10 minus 0.3 centimeters. You can join this with a straight line too. And then point 9 to point 12 is the measurement of the curve 4 to 10 minus 0.3 centimeters. This you can join with a straight line. Are you all with me? I hope so. Next step is to square down from point 7. Make use of the horizontal lines to create a perfect 90-degree angle. The measurement from point 7 to point 13 is your sleeve length, so mine will be 57.8 centimeters. Right, now you can square across to both sides, and this will be your wrist line. Now it is time to create your side seams. To do this, you can square down from point 11 to point 15 and from point 12 to point 14. We have the basic sleeve head down, but now we need to shape it to create a smooth line when sewn into the armhole. So to shape the head, you need to first hollow the curve from 9 to 12 by 0.75 centimeters. Then you can draw in your curve. To create the shape from 7 to 9, raise it by 1 centimeter and draw in your curve. Now, to create the curve, you first have to measure the line from 7 to 5 and divide that by 3. 1/3 down from point 7, raise the curve by 2 centimeters and draw in your curve. Last but not least, hollow your curve by 1 centimeter to create the curve between point 5 and 11. And there you have it. You have created a nice sleeve head or sleeve cap. Just go over the lines to make sure that the line is a continuous, smooth line from point 12 to 11. Now you need to draw in your wrist line. Don't worry guys, we are almost done. From point 13 to 14, lower the curve by 1 centimeter and draw in your line or your curved line. And from point 13 to 15, raise the curve by 1 centimeter and draw in your curved line. Just so that you know, your elbow line will fall on the waistline of your bodice. Do you guys remember our styling lesson when I said that if you want to show off your waist, wear elbow length sleeves? Now you can see why on a pattern. Usually your elbow is in line with your waist, and by wearing elbow-length sleeves, you guide the eye towards the waist. Quite cool to see it from a pattern maker's perspective. And this is what your final sleeve pattern will look like when traced from the bodice. Remember to add your notches, 2 for the back and 1 to indicate that it is the front half of the sleeve. Also make a notch at the top of the sleeve head or the cap. This will be in line with the shoulder seam. How are you guys feeling? Are you feeling confident? I hope so. While you take a bit of a breather, let me tell you about our next lesson. Do you know the saying, less is more? When creating a portfolio, it is super important to focus on quality over quantity. In the next lesson, we will pay special attention to what a portfolio is and the significant role it plays in your career as a fashion designer. We will also go on a build your own portfolio journey, creating something that showcases and celebrates your fashion design skills. I know it has been quite an overwhelming and difficult lesson, but I promise you, once you have drafted these basic blocks for yourself, it will bring you a lot of joy. Just like bodices and sleeves, there are many different skirt blocks, but we are going to focus on the tailored skirt block. This block kind of resembles the pencil skirt. With this block, you can basically manipulate it into any skirt you want, which is why this is the perfect foundation block. So let's start by looking at the measurements you will need to draft the basic skirt block. You will need your waist, your hips, your waist to knee measurement or the length of your skirt, and your waist to hip measurement. Right, like all patterns, we need to start somewhere. So for step 1, I want you to square down and across from point 0. Point 0 to 1 will be half of your hip measurement plus 1.5 centimeters, and you can square down from this point to create your center front line. My hip measurement is 90, so half of that plus 1.5 will give me 46.5 centimeters. Point 1 to 2 will be your skirt length. I'm going to make mine a knee length skirt and use the waist to knee measurement, which in my case will be 57.8 centimeters. After you have marked in your point, you can square across to point 3. Now you have your block that we are going to work within. Point 1 to 4, this will be your waist to hip measurement, so mine is 20.1 centimeters. And you can go ahead and square across from point 4 to point 5 on the center front line. Point 4 to 6 is a quarter hip measurement plus 1.5 centimeter. My measurement is 24 centimeters. Once you have marked your point, you can square down to point 7 on the hemline of the garment. Point 1 to 8 will be a quarter of your waist measurement plus 4.25 centimeters. My waist measurement is 66, so a quarter of that plus 4.25 centimeters will give me 20.75 centimeters. Point 8 to 9 is a 1.25 centimeter measurement. And now you can join point 0, 9 and 6 with a straight, broken or dotted line. To get point 10 and 11, you need to measure the distance between 0 and 9 and divide it by 3. Using the 0 to 9 line as a guide, square down 14 centimeters to point 12. Please note the little 90 degrees symbol. Again, please use the 0 to 9 line as a guide and square down 12.5 centimeters to point 13. And now you need to construct the darts. Both of the darts are 2 centimeters. So to do this, measure out 1 centimeter on either side of the dotted line and connect the new dots. It is important to remember to measure from the bottom of the dart, so point 12 and 13, and make sure that the legs are either 14 centimeters or 12.5 centimeters. You will notice that they do not touch the waistline, but that is okay. We are going to draw the new waist in now. Now you can draw in your new curved waistline. To create a smooth waistline, you can always close the dart by folding the paper so that the legs are on top of each other and just smooth out the lines. And now you can finish the back skirt by drawing in your side seam, curving it 0.5 centimeters outwards. Let's look at the front of the skirt. You will need 1/4 of your waist measurement plus 2.25 centimeters. The extra centimeters, if you were wondering, are for the dart. Mine will be 18.75 centimeters. Just like the back, we need to square up 1.25 centimeters from 0.14 to 0.15. And then you can join all the points with a straight broken line. So 0.1 to 15, 2.6. 0.15 to 16 will be 1/3 of the measurement between 1 and 15. Mark 0.16 and square down. 0.16 to 0.17 will be the length of your front dart. And again, just like the back, you need to construct your 2 centimeter dart. On the front, we only have 1 dart instead of 2. This is because most of us are more curvy in the bum area. To finish the front of the skirt, draw in your curved waistline and your side seam, curving at 0.5 centimeters outwards. And just like that, you have a perfect skirt block. Remember to write in the following information, like the front, back, center, front line, and center, back, and your hip, to ensure that you do not get confused when you start manipulating the pattern. Phew, guys, we are almost done. Now we need to finish the pattern. So, you need to true the pattern. We already know what it means to true a pattern, but a reminder never hurt anyone. Truing a pattern is the process of checking that all of the darts, seams, and hems are correct, that they line up, and that all the curves are smooth. This is a very small but very important job. So, it is now the time to check that the shoulders match with each other, that the side seams match, and the notches line up. Double check measurements and check the armhole and sleeve too. Once you have gone through the truing process, you can add all the pattern information, symbols, and grain lines. For your basic block, you do not need to add seam allowance because the purpose of this block is to act as the first step, and adding seam allowance now may influence the following designs. Because this pattern is your parent pattern that will be used often, I suggest you trace it onto a cardboard and then cut it out. Cardboard is sturdier, which means it won't be damaged as easily, and it is easier to trace around a thicker pattern than a flimsy piece of paper. I suggest you keep the basic pattern block that you've created on paper somewhere safe for when your cardboard basic block needs to retire and you need to trace a new one. You can always fold it up and pop it into an envelope and write on it, my basic block, size small, just so that you know what it is for when you need to grab it again. And just like that, you have created your very first basic blocks with Shaw Academy. Perhaps this lesson was not exciting as you expected, but it is probably one of the more valuable ones. This is not just a basic block, but it is the beginning of your fashion career, the beginning of amazing designs and amazing garments. I always say with a good basic block, the opportunities are endless. And now is the time to create your own basic bodice block with sleeve, either using standard body measurements or your own. When you have completed your pattern, please add all the necessary symbols and information on each pattern piece. I suggest you measure yourself and re-watch the video and follow along with me when drafting your own pattern, or please refer to your summary notes and webinar slides to avoid any mistakes. I would love to see your patterns, so please share a work in progress photo or a photo of you drafting your pattern or a photo of the finished pattern on your favorite social media channel and our Facebook group. If you share it on Instagram, please remember to tag Shaw Academy and use the hashtag ShawFashionBlock. Congratulations designers! 7 lessons done and 1 to go for Module 3. I must say I am really enjoying my time with you. Thank you for joining me for this patternful lesson. I hope to see you for Lesson 8, Build a Portfolio. Without proper foundations, there can be no fashion. Now this quote by Christian Dior can be interpreted in many ways, but for today I want you to think about your basic block as your foundation. I am going to end this lesson by reading you a poem by Helen Joseph Armstrong titled Ode to a Working Pattern that expresses the importance and joy of pattern making. From a master pattern I was cloned, a perfect shape to be changed and honed. While I lay prone on this tabletop, design lines are plotted non-stop. Who is this person with scissor in hand, slashing, spread, lapping according to plan? Look what has been done to me. That outrageous pattern is a travesty. My original shape I can't reclaim, for what I was is not the same. But wait, now assembled and sewn, what was confusing is now known. I do not look the same, it is true, yet without me what could they do? Draw the design on the model provided, my shape the clue by which to be guided. If perplexed, see later in text and you will find me, darted, flared and fitted and in all my glory. Designs simple and complex you can create by learning flat pattern making, so why wait? Until next time, as always, stay fashionable designers.